Hi friends, this is the first video of the lecture series on Indian economy. This video is being presented by Dr. Arjun Bopana of Bangalore IAS Academy in association with NammaKPSC Academy and Mentors for IAS. In this video, I will be giving you an introduction to Indian economy. So here we will be discussing about the importance of Indian economy, what to study and how to study, and from where do we study these topics. So first let's try to understand the importance for the prelims, the Indian economy for prelims. So if you see the previous year's UPSC examination, you will see that there are the question ranges from 25 to 25 questions are asked from Indian economy every year in prelims. If you see in 2018, 25 questions, 17, 29 questions, 16, 29 questions, 21, 10, 18. So on an average, you can expect around 15 to 25 questions on Indian economy in your prelims. This goes even for KPSC as well as other public service commission. Okay, Indian economy, because a lot of questions, a lot of issues are always there in the news, making news. Okay, and it affects the day-to-day life of a common citizen of our country. So you as an officer tomorrow are expected to know economic issues, the problems, so that when you have your common people approaching you, you will be able to handle them much more effectively. Okay, if you see last year 2019 prelims, they had asked about 29 questions. So they had asked 7 questions from the theory and 21 questions from current affairs. So if you see here, more weightage is always given to current affairs. Okay, but in order to understand current affairs, you need to know certain aspects from the theory, basics. So first let's try to get comfortable with the basics and then relate these basics or the concepts with current affairs issue. Now for example, let me try to explain to you what do you mean by basics. So taxation, okay, and the type of taxation, that is direct tax and indirect tax. So this is the type of tax, type of taxes. So in your current affairs, they can ask issues related to GST. But to understand the issues relating to GSTs, the problems, the features, the advantage, etc., you have to first know what is tax, what are the different types of tax, why this GST. For example, GST is a value added tax. Now what is this value added tax? You will be able to understand if you are familiar with the basics or the concepts. So in our sessions, we will first try to understand and get ourselves comfortable with the basics and then relate those basics with current issues. Okay? So this is how our classes also will progress. So this is very important section in your prelims preparation. Almost 1/4 of your questions will be related to your Indian economy, either current affairs or from basics. Now, if you see 2000, so that's fine. Okay, now let's go to our program, how we will try to address these Indian economy in our video series. So first we will start off directly. I mean, see, these video series will be bang on with what is expected from your examination. Okay, what exactly is required for your examination is what we will be handling in these classes. Okay, keep it very simple, keep it very effective. And that is a strategy for these sessions. Now, the first section or the first topic that we will be discussing is fiscal policy. Now what is this fiscal policy? Fiscal policy, now if you take policy means, I mean in simple terms, what is policy? Policy is the decisions taken by a government. Okay, so these decisions relating to the income and the expenditure of the government is known as fiscal policy. We usually don't use the word income per se. Okay, we use the word receipt. Receipt means anything that the government receives in its account, and any money that is spent from this account is the expenditure. So what is this fiscal policy? Fiscal policy is therefore the receipt and the expenditure policy of the government. Whatever the government does in order to earn revenue or get money, everything that the government does to get money, and everything that the government does in order to spend this money. Now, for example, government will say that I am going to collect so much tax, I am going to collect so much profit, I am going to collect so much toll, I am going to collect so much fine, etc. So this will become the receipt of the government. And on the other hand, it will say that I am going to spend this money on agriculture, on health, etc. Okay. So this policy decisions of the government is known as fiscal policy. So in fiscal policy, we'll have to understand the income side of the government and the expenditure side of the government. So one of the major income of the government is taxes. So major part of our discussion in this particular chapter will be on tax. In tax, we have two types: direct tax, that is your income tax, and your indirect tax, and the major indirect tax is your now GST. So we will try to understand the different types of direct taxes, indirect taxes. We'll also try to understand the reforms that is introduced by the government, okay, in order to make it more effective. We will try to understand the various concepts relating to direct and indirect taxes. Now, for example, what is progressive taxes, what is value added taxes, what is ad valorem taxes. All these concepts, basic concepts, we will try to understand. In reforms, DTC and GST, and why all these things we will try to understand. So then there are other kinds of receipt also, that is your capital receipts, the loans that the government takes, etc., etc. All that when we discuss those chapters, I will try to make it more familiar for you guys. Next, coming to the expenditure, we have several types of expenditures by the ministry: salaries, maintenance, defense, law and order. Now, all these types of expenditures are there. One of the major expenditure which we need to understand from the exam point of view is subsidies. Subsidies is basically something like opposite of tax, you can say. So it is somewhat like a grant given to the citizens in the form of either cash or kind. Yes, so you might have heard about old age pension schemes, right? So that is cash. You might have heard about your food security act, under which we give rice, wheat, etc. through fair price shops, so that is kind. So these are subsidies. Subsidies are very important because it is one of the major expenditure. Other than being the major expenditure, okay, there are issues relating to subsidies, and therefore there are reforms that is being implemented by the government for these subsidies. So we'll have to try to understand these things also. So subsidies, types of subsidies, why you need subsidies, what are the issues relating to subsidies, and what reforms, example, direct benefit transfer, etc. we will try to understand. So these are some of the important topics that we'll be covering. Other than those things, we'll also be covering about the concepts of deficit, the different types of deficit. You would have read in the newspaper like revenue deficit, effective revenue deficit, fiscal deficits, etc. So we will try to understand all of this. Another important topic that we need to cover in this particular chapter is fiscal consolidation. Okay, in order to achieve a better sustainable fiscal policy, we have to undertake what is known as fiscal consolidation. So how do we do this, etc. we will try to understand those things. And then finally we will end this chapter by discussing finance commission. Okay, so finance commission and the 15th finance commission, its recommendation, analysis of this, etc. we will try to do in this to conclude this particular chapter. Once we have finished this fiscal policy chapter, we will move on to the next chapter, that is our monetary policy. Now, what is this monetary policy? Okay, so this monetary policy, again, policy is a decision. So it is a decision taken by the RBI dealing with regulating the supply of money in the economy. So you have the economy. In the economy, you have money. Money affects the demand in the economy, and in turn, it affects the prices. Now, let's try to make you understand in simple words. So, if there is more money, if you have more money, let's say you have more money, so what will happen to the demand? Okay, your demands will increase if you have more money. When your demands increases, okay, or when everybody's demand increases, what happens to the prices? Prices will increase. When there is less money, now you have less money, others also have less money. So what will happen to the demand in the economy? It will reduce. When the demand reduces, what will happen to the prices? Prices also will reduce. So the amount of money in the economy, more or less, will determine the prices. I hope you understood. So more or less money in the economy will determine the prices. Either it will be high or less. If it is high, it will lead to inflation. If it is less, it may lead to less profit by the companies because they are getting less price. Now, if you are a farmer, if you get less price for your produce, you will make less profit or even loss. This might end up becoming a recession. So therefore, high price also is bad. Low price also is bad. So what is the best best approach? You should have the right amount of money. Amount of money which does not increase demand, nor does it reduce the demand, or nor does it increase the price or reduce the price. So we have to ensure that there is the right amount of money, not too much, not too less. Who does this? This is done by none other than by RBI. So this policy of RBI to regulate the supply of money in the economy is known as monetary policy. So how does it do it? How does it do it? By supplying more money when there is shortage, or absorbing more money when there is excess. For this, RBI has got various tools. We classify these tools into qualitative tools and quantitative tools. This is what we will be discussing in the chapter. When the chapter comes, I will try to explain to you in much more detail. So using these tools, RBI will regulate the supply of money in the economy. Okay, to control the prices in the economy. The main objective of monetary policy in India is price stabilization. We need to have a stable price. There should be no inflation, nor there should be low price. We should have the right amount of price. So business also should make profit, and the consumers also should get these commodities at the right amount of price. That is the objective, and this is done by RBI. You might have heard about repo rates. Okay, you might have heard about bank rates, etc. These are the things that we will be discussing in this chapter, monetary policy. Okay. Next, the next chapter we will be discussing is financial institutions. In financial institutions, we will have to discuss banking, NBFCs, and financial markets. So these are the there's one more, DFI, Development Financial Institutions. So banking, NBFCs, and DFI, three types of financial institutions are there. So what are these financial institutions? Now let's try to understand it in simple words again. So these financial institutions are nothing but intermediaries. Now let's try to understand it this way. Now you, okay, and me. So you are earning money, you have salary, income, etc. let's say. So you are earning and you have some savings. And you want these savings to be invested. Okay? And me, I am a businessman, let's say. And I need money for doing business, for investment. I need to, open a new shop, let's say. So I need money, I don't have money. You have money and you want to invest somewhere. So how do we meet? We meet through this financial institution. So you will go to these financial institution and give your money, and I will go to these financial institution and take money. Let's take, for example, simple bank. So you deposit your savings in the bank. What does the bank do? Bank will give it to businessmen like me, or a farmer, etc., who needs money. A farmer needs money, he will go to the bank and he will take loan. Bank will get money from whom? It will get it from people like you who has savings. So these are financial intermediaries. So financial intermediaries or financial institution is a very broad term. Bank is something which we all very commonly know about, which we use. Other than banks, there are different other types of financial institutions like DFIs, development financial institutions. You might have heard about NABARD, etc. They are that. You might have heard about NBFCs, chit funds, simple things like chit funds and all that. So those are NBFCs. So DFIs, NBFCs and banks. We will try to understand what are they, different types, classify them, issues, concepts relating to that. A lot of this is quite a very big chapter. We will try to understand the various concept terms relating to banking. How do we classify banks? How interest is determined? Okay, how who regulates these banks? What are the problems with banking sector? You might have heard about NPA thanks to friends like Vijay Mallya, who has taken loan and run away. So non-performing assets, what is it, etc. All these things we will try to understand in this chapter. Okay, so along with that, another type of financial intermediaries is financial markets, etc. So we will try to understand the various types of institutions, instruments in this. Institution means bank. Bank is an institution. Instrument means your savings account, your current account. These are your instruments. All that we will try to understand. Okay. Next, once we complete all these chapters, we will go into external sector. When I say external sector, see, India is a globalized economy. Okay. When we say globalized economy, that Indian economy is in continuous interaction with the rest of the world. Okay, so there are a lot of when we say interaction, there is movement of goods, there is movement of services, there is movement of people, there is movement of capital across our economic boundary. Okay, so this we need to study in external sector. In simple words, what is external sector is that part of the economy which is done in foreign currency. See, for example, import. When we import something, let's say when you import petrol, you pay in what? You pay in dollars. When you export, what do you do? When you export, what do you get? You get dollars. So that part of the economy which is done in foreign currency is known as external sector. So here we will have to first understand the different types of foreign asset flow like FDI, FPI, etc. We will classify to keep a record. The external sector is kept, the record is kept in the form of balance of payment. So it is an account of how much money is coming into India and how much money is going out of India. There is two accounts in this. One is known as current account. The other one is known as capital account. We will have to also understand how currency value is determined. We will be studying about trade and commerce. We will talk about the different types of trade interaction like free trade agreement, FTA, or CEPA, SICA. You would have heard all these things in your current affairs. We will also be discussing about monetary union. Things like this we will try to understand in external. Very important and very interesting chapter. So here we will understand FDI, FPI, how currency is determined, how trade take place. All these things we will try to understand. Along with that, we'll also try to understand international financial organization like World Trade Organization, World Bank, IMF, its objectives, agendas, various issues, concepts relating to that. For example, if you talk about World Trade Organization, we will be discussing about most favored nation principle, things like that. In IMF, we will be discussing about SDR. Okay, so these things we will be discussing in external sector. Next, once we have covered these important chapters, we will gradually move on to other issues relating to economy, like understanding the history behind the Indian economy. See, I've kept these, usually are done in the beginning, but I've kept it towards the end because once we have understood the most important subjects, topics like external sector, public fiscal policy, monetary policy, these are more important. these history, etc. Once you are familiar with these major chapters, you will be automatically, you yourself will be able to understand these issues. So history of Indian economy, how it was before the British came in, then during the British time what happened, then after independence. After independence, broadly we can classify Indian economy into two phases. One is before 90s, one is after 90s. Before 90s, that is in the 90s, we undertook LPG reforms, etc. So these things we will be discussing in history over here. Then we will also try to, next topic we will be discussing national income. In national income, we will be understanding concepts like GDP, okay, GNP, current, at current price, market price, things like that. Then how do we measure economic growth, how do we measure economic development, etc. There's already a video of mine, I will share the link in the description box. You can have a look at this, okay, national income and economic growth, etc. Then we will be discussing economic planning, poverty, unemployment, and various other current issues. As and when we cover these topics, we will discuss current issues, schemes, policies of the government related to economics. Okay, so in current issues, we will be discussing inflation, we'll be discussing black money, tax haven, demonetization. I don't know, if we get time we will discuss, it's now quite old. Then stressed asset like NPA, we will be discussing this in banking. Unemployment, jobless growth. Okay, so currently India is growing, okay, but it's not creating as much job as we are expected, to create. So these this kind of growth is known as jobless growth. Why is it happening? What is the reason? What we need to do, etc. We will try to understand. Then economic slowdown, what we are seeing, unfortunately because of this COVID-19, economy is going to further slow down. We will try, we'll try to understand all those things, etc. Then digital economy, okay, things like digital wallet, cryptocurrency, etc. we will discuss in this particular chapter. So all these are some of the important topics that we will be covering in this video series. Please subscribe and please keep following so that you will get kind of an orientation towards the end of these sessions. So I will be trying to keep it very simple, discuss the basics, and try to relate it with current affairs, and we will try to solve some questions on the way, okay, so to make it much more easy and effective. Now coming to the resources, where will we study these topics from? See, first of all, what I would expect you to do is read NCERTs. This is especially for those who find economy very difficult or who do not have any idea about economics. Even if you don't know something like tax, I would recommend you to read NCERT book to get a basics foundation. Please remember, NCERT is only for your basic, getting you a foundation. Now you might have studied economics in your 10th as part of your civics. It must have been many years since you have covered this. So therefore, we need to revise and get a foundation on economics basics. So therefore, you can read NCERT. So I would recommend you to start off with 11th NCERT and 12th NCERT. If you find these NCERTs difficult, then you can go to 10th standard NCERT. If you find 10th also difficult, go to 9th NCERT. That also difficult, you go for 8th standard NCERT or 7th standard NCERT. So this is how you go. You determine what is your level of understanding, and that's how you go. Don't start off with 1st standard NCERT and then go. No, that's not how you're going to do. You start off with 11th standard and 12th standard. This is must. If you're not understanding, then maybe probably 10th. I think most of you will be comfortable with 10th standard. 10th standard NCERT, then 11th, and then 12th standard NCERT. Read it once, get a basic idea about the concepts, terminologies related to economics, and then shift on to any standard source. Any standard source. See, I have my own book, Indian Economy. The download link is there in the description box. I have compiled it from various standard sources, online sources and current affairs. I've upgraded it as much as possible till 2019. So it will give you a broad idea, and I'll be also discussing my videos from that particular book itself. So you can download that and you can relate it with my videos, and we can you can go and you can keep revising from that. So NCERT, after that one standard book, any one standard book. Second, if you don't understand any concepts or anything is not clear, then just Google it up. Use Google. There are a lot of websites on that. Okay, you see those issues, understand, and leave it at that. Make a small micro notes of those things. This is what you are expected to do. Don't have to read 2 to 3 books. Read one book, one standard source, repeated revision, and then use Google to understand various issues or current affairs, etc. And then third one is current affairs. Keep updating yourself with current affairs. This is what I expect you if you are following my classes. Next, in addition to these standard sources, you need to read Indian Economic Survey. So Indian Economic Survey, there is 2 volumes, volume 1 and volume 2. This gives you a perspective of how Indian economy was in the previous year. It gives you an idea as to challenges, what the government has done, schemes, programs relating to Indian economy. Very, very important. Lot of questions are asked from Indian economy, both from prelims as well as from mains point of view. In addition to this, you also have to read Indian budget. I have also explained the Indian budget and I have made a document. You can download it from the link, okay, in the description box. So Indian budget, okay, the various recent schemes, etc. that the government has announced, you'll have to read. India yearbook also is very important. I would only stress on selected schemes from that because it's quite a bulky book. Reading the entire book would be time consuming. So you can keep it towards the end. If you have read everything, still have time, you can focus on India yearbook. But these two, Indian Economic Survey, Indian budget, must read. Okay? For those who are preparing for State Public Service Commission like KPSC, you also have to read Karnataka Economic Survey and Karnataka budget. The link of to buying this is there in the description box. To download them, you can download and start reading them. Now, this is for your preliminary examination. A small note or insight into your mains preparation as well. If you've seen the mains syllabus, General Studies paper 3, okay, has economic section. This is the syllabus, what is mentioned there: planning, mobilization of resource, growth, development, employment, inclusive growth, government budgeting, agriculture, land reforms, industrial sector, infrastructure, investment module, current economics, etc. So these are the various topics that are there in your General Studies paper 3. What I have highlighted in red, we will be covering in these classes, whereas the others will have to cover exclusively from the mains point of view. So that we will probably do another video series. Okay, but in this we'll be focusing mainly on prelims General Studies part. Okay, so this is the introduction to Indian economy. I hope it was helpful. We will be starting with the basics introduction in the next video. Okay, so video number 2 will be about the basics, understanding the terms concept. Video number 3 we will start with fiscal policy. I will give a broad introduction to fiscal policy. Video number 4 we will try to understand the taxes. Video number 5 we will discuss GST and various aspects related to GST. And so on. So that's how we will go. So as and when we will be covering these topics, at the end of it, I will tell you what we will be covering in the next video. Okay, please follow, please subscribe. All the details regarding the downloads are there in the description box. Thank you for watching. Thank you and have a good day.